The MMA fortune teller.
The teller. The teller. The teller. The teller. The teller. The teller.
What's up, you guys? Bellator 263 taking place in Los Angeles, California. The fights are going down in the Forum. So we got a major Bellator event here. The crowd is going to be back in attendance. I believe that is the first time for Bellator having the crowd back since this whole pandemic started. So a major move there for Bellator. I'm excited to see them bringing the crowd back. You guys know I'm a big time Bellator fan. Been watching Bellator from the very beginning, and I have no problem with the promotion growing more and more by the day, and not to say that it would ever necessarily compete toe-to-toe with the UFC, but being just a very close second. I enjoy that. I enjoy having more fights to watch, more fights to break down, which is why I want to let you guys know now. I will be putting out a Bellator breakdown video for each card moving forward, which I generally break down these cards anyway, but I want to make it clear, no matter if it's a big card, a smaller card, I will be breaking down every Bellator card moving forward, and I will be getting them out to you earlier in the week moving forward. I've been getting a lot of messages from you guys asking me about that, and that's the answer there. So hopefully you guys are happy to hear that. Also, just take a note too. As far as like PFL goes and a couple other promotions, I'm gonna start putting out a little bit more of those as well. Won't get to all of them, but I'll start putting out more of those as well. I want to get on the grind here and get these videos out to you guys. All right. So like I said, this is an awesome event here, Bellator 263. It's definitely all about the main event. But we got some other exciting fights too. But this main event, Patricio, Pitbull, is just one of the best fighters to ever do it in the featherweight division. Doesn't matter that he never fought in the UFC. I don't care about that. This guy is one of the best featherweight fighters of all time. This guy is a legend in the game. He's a legend in the game. And now he's taking on this guy, AJ McKee. This kid, AJ McKee. He's 17-0 as a professional. AJ McKee is truly the new generation of MMA. We've seen that thrown around before, but this is a guy that's truly the second generation or the new wave of MMA. He's a real second generation fighter. His dad, guy that fought in the UFC very briefly, but had a very, very long MMA career. Antonio McKee. Antonio McKee is a guy that had a very solid record. For whatever reason, he never really hung around the UFC. Was always bouncing around, fighting around the world. But a guy that was very, very skilled. He had AJ McKee training since the moment he came out the womb. It's funny, I used to watch videos. They had like a little show on YouTube way back in the day, man, when I was a young buck in college, watching stuff, where AJ McKee was just a young kid, a little skateboard kid. And, I was watching stuff on his dad back then. And now you got AJ McKee, 17-0 already as a professional, and one of the most diverse, new age type of fighters. So I'm very excited to break that fight down to you guys here in a second. We also got Burnell taking on Emmanuel Sanchez, Usman Nurmagomedov, a lot of hype behind him, taking on Manny Muro. We got also on the main card Gonzalez and Gyodi Yamauchi, and Islam Mamedov taking on Brent Primus. So those are going to be the main card fights. I also want to briefly talk about Georgie Karakhanyan taking on Crosby. That is a fight that's intriguing to me too. I'm not sure why they have it all the way down on the bottom of this fight card. And that's where we're going to actually kick things off here. Big fan of Georgie's. Been watching Georgie from way back. If you guys aren't familiar with Georgie, Georgie is a guy that has a lot of professional experience. 42 professional fights. And just real quick, I want to go through his resume. An extremely well-rounded fighter. He can hang on the feet. Definitely solid with the grappling, the wrestling, the submission skills. He's 36. You take a look into any of his losses. They're all against notable names. Miles Jury, he went to a close fight there. Split decision loss with Miles. Lost to AJ McKee. Emmanuel Sanchez, who we'll be talking about, also a staple over in Bellator. Henry Corrales, Emmanuel Sanchez, Pat Curran, Daniel Wetchel, Rick Glenn over there in the UFC. Okay, these are all legit fighters. You see where I'm going with this? Patricio, Pitbull, Joe Warren back in the day, the ex-Olympian Joe Warren. Okay, You know, you got to go all the way back to 2008. I don't know who Chris David is, but if you guys catch my drift, I mean, this guy, when he's winning all these fights, and the only guys he's losing to is very, very formidable opponents in there. So if you don't know about him, this is a guy that's very skilled. And look at some of the names on his resume: Bubba Jenkins, Lance Palmer, Waylon Lowe, I believe a guy that also fought in the UFC, Din Thomas. Bubba Jenkins, you guys been seeing him putting his stuff together. And Bubba Jenkins at the time, I believe that was his first loss that was handed to him. You know, he was a little bit newer to the game at that time, and Georgie handled business there. Also took him out again, knocked him out in the rematch. Daniel Pineda, a very skilled fighter, now fighting in the UFC, right? Has been having a tough time as of recently. But just to run you through the resume of Georgie Karakhanyan, this is a guy that I like, a very skilled fighter. And this is a guy that's only 36. He still has more to give, in my opinion. Kiefer Crosby, and let me run this back real quick for you guys too. This is the square off from yesterday. But Kiefer Crosby is a guy. It's funny listening to him talk. This guy. I don't know if it's just me. I'm from Florida. I'm from the USA, and I actually have a little bit of Irish heritage in me as well. So I got nothing but love and respect for the Irish fighters. Obviously, I'm a diehard Conor McGregor fan, but I don't know what it is. These guys. It seems to me like they all bite Conor McGregor's style. I don't know if it's just because when I'm listening to them, it's because of the accent, so they also kind of sound similar to me. When you're looking at someone else's culture, it's kind of hard. Sometimes it sounds a little bit similar, but I don't know if that's the case. I think these guys are really biting McGregor's style. I mean, they say the same things, they act the same way, and I get it. McGregor is a guy that is, revolutionized the sport over in their part of the world. So whatever, I get it, but sometimes it's a little bit cringeworthy. I was listening to an interview of Kiefer's, but I love the confidence. He's extremely confident. Comes in phenomenal shape. I mean, this guy, he has a hell of a stature to him. He's going to be the bigger fighter here too. He's going to have, about a 2.5-inch reach advantage. He's going to be 3 inches taller. That's nothing new for Georgie. Georgie's been smaller in a lot of fights that he's been in there. Kiefer in his last fight, in the interview, he's saying he didn't lose that fight because it was a doctor stoppage due to a cut. Run the tape back in that fight. Kiefer looked very good in the beginning of that fight. Was bringing the pressure, landing some big shots. But make no mistake about it, he was out on his feet. He was out in that fight. He got beat down, and he almost got finished to cap the first round off by Charlie Leary, the very tough Charlie, which is a little bit of an inside joke too, if you guys knew what was going on with that fight. But Kiefer was saying he wasn't tough or something going in that fight. He refused to refer to him as a tough guy. But he definitely showed he was a tough guy because he ate all of Kiefer Crosby's shots and then ended up basically getting the finish there. Kiefer doesn't have a lot of power on his strikes, in my opinion. He's kind of light on his feet. He kind of has that James Gallagher type of style. He looks very similar, if you guys catch my drift. How James Gallagher is, just very light on his feet, throwing that pitter-patter style. Just looking out to volume you and maybe, put you on Queer Street by just, out-voluming you and racking up some shots on your brain. But Georgie will hit you with the power shot, and I think Georgie has more power in his hands. I know he has way more experience, and I like Georgie to win this fight. Kiefer is going to have to show some significant growth in his game if he's going to take this fight. I do know that he said this is the first time that he's had a training camp. He was over here in the States helping train with Conor McGregor. I think he even trained up in Canada, did a little road trip up there, I think he said. And he said this is like the first time, didn't have any distractions with the kids and this and that. He's been getting great sleep, great training. Don't underestimate that because that does go a long way. If you're getting, proper rest and proper sleep, if you weren't beforehand, that makes a big difference with your training. I still don't think it's going to be enough to take out Georgie, though, and that's why I'm going with Georgie, Insane, Karakhanyan. And as far as the line goes, minus 250, I do feel that's a little bit on the steep side, in my opinion. I do feel that's on the steep side. And I know he just had a split decision victory over Bryce Logan. Wasn't the best performance by Georgie. I'm not necessarily saying he's slowing down, but he is getting up there. 36 now. The Miles Jury fight wasn't that bad of a fight for him, to be quite honest, even though he lost it. And before that, he submitted Paul Redman. Minus 250. I think that's a little bit high to an extent, just because I like the size advantage Kiefer has. I like a couple of those little X factors I was just talking to you guys about. Maybe he looks a little bit sharper in there. He has that size advantage. But I still got Georgie there. I think the line should be more around minus 220, minus 210. I would see the line more accurately placed at. All right, so remember that's early in the fight card. Hopefully they fix that. Another notable fight, maybe you want to watch Johnny Cisneros taking on Joshua Johnson, two guys that have been fighting over in Bellator for some time, two tough guys. We're gonna slide up though to the Chris Gonzalez versus Gioti Yamauchi. Gioti, a guy, a very very talented fighter, a very very skilled jiu-jitsu player. This guy can wrap you up like a snake, man. He'll take your back, put you in the rear naked choke. This guy is very skilled there on the mat. And, I've been excited to watch his career progress. Has had a little bit of a setback in his last fight, right? A loss to Dan Moret. But we'll talk about Dan here in a second. But, just to give you some insight, going into the fight with Bubba Jenkins, that was a big fight at the time. Both guys were big time prospects. He did lose to Bubba, but no real shame there. Bubba's wrestling is very legit. He's a superior athlete to a lot of guys he steps in there with. But Gioti bounced back with 3 victories in a row, taking out Ryan Couture, Adam Piccolotti. That was a very skilled, very solid fight there. Adam was undefeated at the time, so this was a very, very big fight for him at that time, and that's where he was really showcasing his jiu-jitsu skills too, man. Got the first round sub. Then he got a big fight with Michael Chandler. Didn't go his way, but you know what? Surviving with Michael Chandler is an accolade in itself. Bounced back again with 3 victories in a row. Took out Darren Cruikshank, Saad Awad, and then again the Dan Moret loss. Dan Moret, ex-UFC fighter, very tough guy, tough wrestler, hard-hitting guy in the feet. If you take a look at Dan Moret as well, his resume is actually better than some people do think, It's not always the best look at first glance. You take a loss to Dan Moret, a guy that couldn't really survive in the UFC. But if you take a look at Dan Moret's overall record, this is a guy, you take a look at his losses, losses to Jared Gordon, Gilbert Burns, Alex White, a tough guy back in the day, kind of, Ione Barcelos. So, just to get an idea, Bobby Moffett, Luke Sanders, his losses were all too reputable opponents, and Dan Moret could fight. But Gioti in that fight, lost position in a couple moments in the fight, and it cost him the fight there. I still do think that Gioti's a very skilled opponent, 28 years old, and I think that this is a good fight for him. Chris Gonzalez here. Chris Gonzalez, on the other hand, Chris Gonzalez is a guy with a very strong wrestling background. This guy is a legit wrestler. He's very, very strong. I've been breaking down some tape on him. I mean, you'll watch him literally pick guys up and put them over his shoulder and slam them down and get them out of there within minutes of the fight. So of course he's gonna have the wrestling edge. Gioti's gonna have the jiu-jitsu edge and the overall MMA experience. I think that Gonzalez is gonna have the edge and the power in his hands. I think this guy's very explosive. He throws some heavy shots with his hands. Gioti might be a little bit more poised and a little bit more skilled, on the feet possibly. Stylistically, this is a very cool matchup here. And I've been back and forth in this fight a little bit, but I like Gioti here. I like Gioti for the sake that he has 30 professional fights compared to Chris's 6 professional fights. Gioti's a guy that's going to be very comfortable in there. He's going to be more comfortable in specific positions. And if Chris just tries to go in there and use his wrestling, I could see Gioti using the jiu-jitsu, man, to nullify that. Maybe all of a sudden Gioti's on his back, or pulling off an armbar or something nasty in there, and I'm going to take him. I'm going to take Gioti there. Close line, right around -145 for Gioti right now, and that's a good fight. That's a solid Bellator fight there. I like it. All right, we got Brent Primus taking on Islam Mamedov. Islam 19-1-1. Fighting out of Russia, training over in Jersey City. You guys know they refer to that area over there as Little Dagestan, or the New Dagestan. Those guys that come out of there, extremely skilled. They get even more refined over here in the States, and there's a reason why people are hiring them, because those types of guys constantly go out there and deliver victories. I will say this guy is very, very grappling oriented, very much so, and at times he even goes in there a little bit desperately, and he puts himself in harm's way. I was breaking down a couple of his fights, and I was a little disappointed in the way he fought at specific times. Almost got finished in the first round in one fight. Was just diving in for takedowns, getting elbowed in the side of his head. Was put on Queer Street. He was wobbled. But you also got to be impressed with the way He survived that. He has a very tough chin, and the way that he'll just continuously go for the takedowns. So even if you stuff one or you stuff two, he's going to chain wrestle you. He's just never going to give up in there until he puts you on your back, and he's trying to pass your guard and trying to mount you and just smash you there. And a lot of guys like betting on dudes like that because it's a very solid skill to have in the cage, man. When guys have that wrestling edge and that grappling edge and they continuously go for it and they don't hesitate, a lot of times they end up getting it there and you feel good while you're watching the fight, where they're on in top position, they're raining on shots, breaking these guys. Primus is no slouch with the grappling. Brett can wrestle. He has a wrestling background. He also has been working on his striking. I give him the edge as far as the striking goes. Brent 10-1 as a professional. That one loss against Michael Chandler. Remember, he did win the first time against Michael Chandler. He defeated Michael Chandler. And, I don't know. I don't think that was necessarily just a fluke. I know some people may say that. He threw a beautiful leg kick or calf kick. And, it shut off Michael Chandler's leg. Remember that? He was injured. He was trying to fight through it. I probably would have liked to have seen Primus kind of go in a little bit more in that fight when he was hurt. But he's a solid fighter. He's 36 years old. Not a lot of professional experience for the age, but he's a solid fighter, so not a lot of mileage on the body. I think he's live here. I definitely think that he's a live fighter. I'm kind of wondering if people are just, big on this guy Islam because of, the name, where he's from, the fact he's such a strong grappler. I kind of wonder is what happens if Brent can use his wrestling to stuff those takedowns, keep this fight on the feet, or, hurt Islam coming in when he's coming in for those desperate takedowns. Or maybe I shouldn't say desperate, but those relentless takedowns. At the end of the day, though, I'm going to take this guy Islam Mamedov to win the fight because I love it. I love the relentlessness. And, as I was talking about certain guys like to bet on guys like that, I'm one of them. Not saying I'm targeting this spot at all, but I feel comfortable backing a fighter that I know is not going to hesitate in there. He's going to continuously march forward and go to put the fight where he wants to put it. And again, in this case, Islam is going to want to put Primus on his back. He will. He's going to go in there to clinch him against the cage, rip him down against the mat, and try to mount him. And I like fighters like that, and that's why I'm going to take Islam Mamedov. But, be careful there. Primus is live, in my opinion. All right. A big name on the fight card here. Usman Nurmagomedov taking on Manny Muro. Usman, the cousin of Khabib. This guy is a very, very legit fighter. It's not just the name. If you guys have been tracking him, he's a nasty grappler, of course. I don't even need to say that, but this guy can strike as well. Diverse on the feet, throws nice leg kicks, beautiful leg kicks, throws up the high kicks up there as well. Extremely diverse. He's kind of like the new age of the Nurmagomedovs, kind of like who's that? Umer as well, right? These guys, they like the striking, man. These guys really like the striking. Not to underestimate Khabib's striking as well, because Khabib, in my opinion, had very underestimated striking. But I do believe these guys, the new age of these Dagestani fighters, in particular, these guys coming from the Eagle fight team, these guys, from that lineage, these guys the newer guys are more striking oriented, in my opinion. They're more fluid. They mix it up better. They switch stances. And here's a picture of both these guys. Rest in peace to Khabib's dad as well. A very solid guy. Much respect to him. A legend in the MMA world. These guys are killers, man. Savages. And I mean that as a compliment. These guys are warriors. However you want to say it. Nothing but respect for these guys. This fight, I don't really want to even go too much in depth into it. I think Usman is going to dominate this fight. I think Manny Muro has absolutely nothing for him besides maybe just, hitting him with the lucky punch, hitting him with a big shot in the chin that puts him on Queer Street and he steals the show. I don't see it happening. I've been breaking down tape on Manny Muro as well. The guy's just a tough dude, but does not have the skills, does not have the physical abilities to hang with a guy like Usman. As far as I'm concerned, this line could even go up to as high as minus 2,000 and it would be accurate. So I just don't see him winning the fight, if I'm being quite honest. Usman, 23 years old. He has 12 professional fights as of right now. I would like to see him come over to the UFC. Bellator got their hands on him. We'll see how that transpires moving forward. But again, Usman, this guy, he's a guy that at only the age of 23, this is a guy we'll be seeing a lot more from moving forward. And this guy will probably be holding gold potentially in his career, especially if he stays over in Bellator. I could definitely see him holding gold over there. But if we were to see him really tested, come over to the UFC eventually, get your experience, make some money, and then we'll see how that goes. All right, in the co-main event, we got Mads Burnell taking on Emmanuel Sanchez. A very evenly matched fight here. Emmanuel Sanchez, an absolute staple of the Bellator promotions, been around the Bellator scene for a long time, a very tough customer. Another guy, when you talk about the losses on his resume, only to the best of fighters over there in Bellator. 2 losses to Patricio, Pitbull, a loss to Daniel Weschel, a split decision. It was a very close fight. And actually, redeemed himself in his prior fight before the Patricio, got that fight back as well. Lost to Pat Curran. You guys, if you don't know about Pat Curran was the former featherweight champion over in Bellator, a very skilled fighter. The cousin of, was it Jeff Curran? Pat Curran, Jeff Curran, the Frog. Remember the Frog? Ex-WEC fighter. I was a big fan of his, Jeff Curran. Very talented grapplers. They used to work with Felice Herrig and fighters like that, but Pat Curran was no joke. So again, just solid names, and you want to take a look at these victories. Henry Corrales, Justin Lawrence, Georgie Karakhanyan, Daniel Strauss, Sam Cecilia, again over Georgie, Taiwan Claxton, Daniel Weschel. We talked about that. So, I mean, like I said, just an absolute staple of Bellator. A very solid fighter. He can wrestle. He can stuff your takedowns. He can take you down. He could throw some heavy hooks, some power boxing on you. He could push the pace on you. Great cardio. Just an overall skilled fighter. Only 30 years old, about to be 31. Right in the prime of his career. Taking on Mads Burnell. Mads Burnell is a guy a little bit more one-dimensional. Mads Burnell is definitely more of a grappling-oriented fighter. We saw him in the UFC. Things didn't necessarily go his way. He had that loss to Michel Prazeres, and then Arnold Allen too got submitted in both those fights, which is interesting for the fact that he's more of a grappling type of opponent, but his defense is still questionable at times. But as of recently, he's been the guy going out there, putting guys out, pulling off 2 Japanese neckties, using his grappling to finish the fight as well. And coming off a nice win over there against Saul Rogers, where he got the rear naked choke. Saul Rogers, ex-Ultimate Fighter, striking type of fighter, but a guy that is dangerous. So, yeah, I've been back and forth in this fight too, man. This is a very, very closely contested matchup. I like Emmanuel Sanchez, though. I think Emmanuel Sanchez can keep this fight on the feet. When he keeps it on the feet, I think that he'll have the edge there. I think that he'll feel a little bit more at home here. Not that, Mads Burnell's had a couple of fights in Bellator as well, but I think Emmanuel Sanchez is a guy that's just literally grown up in the Bellator promotion. I think that this is, this is his fight to win, and I expect him to go out there and keep this fight on the feet and pull off an exciting victory here. It's a good fight. If Mads Burnell can use his grappling to get it down to the mat, maybe he pulls off some type of a wild submission. We have seen Emmanuel Sanchez submitted before, right? Just submitted in his last fight by way of guillotine. So Mads Burnell is live for a sub. The line is basically a pick 'em at this point. So whoever you're liking, if you want to bet on this fight, it's definitely not out of the realm. I like Emmanuel Sanchez. Not saying it's something that I'm targeting, but I like Sanchez in a very close fight. Here we go. We got the big main event fight. Patricio Pitbull taking on AJ McKee Jr. What a matchup stylistically. And I don't even mean stylistically just as far as fighting style in the cage, but I mean a matchup between 2 guys, a legend in the game in Patricio Pitbull, an absolute legend, champion, a guy that's hitting his mid-30s, has done so much in the sport. And then you got the new blood, the second-generation fighter, new blood type of fighter who's 17-0. Believe it or not, though, he does have a lot of professional fights for the age that he's at. But still, this is a guy, even though he's 17-0, a lot of his fights were really fights that were just, giving him experience towards the beginning of his resume. I mean, don't get me wrong. As of recently, he's definitely fought guys with with very formidable records, guys that have big names in the game. Karakhanyan, Georgie Karakhanyan, Derek Campos, Darian Caldwell. But if you slide back, to the beginning parts of his career, a lot of these fights could have almost been, amateur type of fights to an extent, which was the right thing to do because he was so young. The Blair Tugman fight, they were feeding him certain type of fighters, but then, it started to get real right around Justin Lawrence. And he's just delivered every single step of the way. And this is without question the biggest test of his career. And I cannot wait to see how this fight takes place. Because like I said, Patricio is a guy that is just so well-rounded, so dangerous in the feet. Patricio really likes to use his striking, likes to knock guys out. That's what he's been doing as of recently. This guy's just been delivering, taking out guys like Michael Chandler, probably one of the biggest wins of his career, probably the biggest win of his career. Taking out guys like Juan Archuleta, Manuel Sanchez twice. Big names in the game. Did have that setback against Benson Henderson, had that leg injury there. The Daniel Strauss fight was a close one, and he did redeem himself in the rematch there and actually got the finish. And he won the first time around too. Yeah, those guys had a trilogy. Had some close fights with Pat Curran back in the day, Joe Warren. But this guy has really, really hit his stride right around the last couple of years. I think he's more dangerous now than he's ever been. Whatever the brothers have been doing over there has been the right thing because these guys have just been handling business. And we take a look at them as far as at the media day squaring off. AJ McKee has this wiry frame. He's so unorthodox, whether it's on the feet, whether it's the grappling. You saw him in his last fight. He pulled off a very, very unorthodox type of submission. And excuse me here, this is actually going to be Nurmagomedov, fair enough with his opponent. But, I'm sorry, we actually don't, they don't have the square off of these guys. But yeah, that was Nurmagomedov. But back to this fight. In AJ McKee's last fight, he goes in there, pulls off the modified neck crank from guard. So remember, he's in guard, and he's reaching over, almost like going for like a Kimura. You see guys typically, attack Kimuras, just try to reverse position or whatnot. But this guy, he's wrapping his long limbs around the neck, you know what I mean, and pulling off a wild type of choke. Something that you don't just see that often. On the feet too, he's just so fluid. He's so quick and athletic. Don't underestimate, his athleticism and the shape that he comes in with. This guy is a freak. This guy's been training heavily, like I said, since he's a kid. He comes in phenomenal shape. This is going to be a 5-round war. I love this fight. I don't know what else to say about this fight. I absolutely love this fight stylistically. Take a look at the Pitbull brothers here. Of course, in my opinion, at least Patricio. I don't think it's much of an opinion. I think it's kind of fact. But Patricio, the better fighter of the brothers. No shade to Patricky, but Patricio, a two-way champion, lightweight and featherweight champion of Bellator. Would have loved to have seen him made his way over to the UFC, but doesn't look like that's going to happen. He's already in his mid-30s, and I think I think Bellator's locking him down. But you know what? I think that he's gonna take a loss here. I do. I think that AJ McKee is gonna pull this fight out. I'm taking the fighter with the youth, maybe better cardio as this fight goes to the later rounds. I really am a believer in AJ McKee's cardio and his conditioning. I like his speed, the way he's so unorthodox, and I'm gonna take him here. I think that he has a couple different ways that he can pull this fight off. Where for the most part, I think that Patricio is going to need to hurt AJ pretty bad. I think he needs to go in there and he needs to hurt AJ McKee bad. He needs to land some devastating shots with the hands. Because other than that, I think that McKee will be a little bit quicker in there, and I think that we'll see some new stuff from AJ McKee. You're going to see that a lot from him over the next couple of years as his career progresses. You're going to see things that you may have not even seen in the cage. I really believe that. Or just the way that he pulls certain things off. It's going to be a little bit different than what we've seen from other fighters. And I'm a big fan of what he brings to the table. I had a major official play on him against Darian Caldwell in his last fight. So, I was very pumped to see the way that he handled business in there. And Darian Caldwell is no joke. A very strong wrestler, talented athlete himself. The way he handled Derek Campos made it look easy. He finished Georgie, made it look easy. He makes it look easy on these guys. Pat Karakhanyan was able to hang around, and again, you guys know I'm very high on Pat as well. And I think that AJ McKee was still, he's still getting his feet wet, and fighting big names like Pat Karakhanyan at the time was still a little bit new to him. I think now, after taking out 4 guys like those names in a row, I think that his confidence is sky high, and I think that he has this a little bit of a cockiness to him, and I like it. He's going in there expecting to take out Patricio. And again, he is the son of Antonio McKee, and Antonio McKee was a very well-rounded fighter, a guy that's very knowledgeable in the game, and he has passed all that knowledge and skill down to AJ McKee. And look at the frame on this guy. And this guy, he's a freak athlete, man. For his division, right? Of course, I'm not comparing him to some freak light heavyweight or heavyweight, type of fighter. But for his division, I love the frame. I love the long limbs. This is the ideal frame, in my opinion. I'm not. I mean, everyone can make their own physique work for them, but this is my ideal frame. I like the long limbs to pull off the crazy type of unorthodox submissions, and so you can land these wild strikes from a distance, and he has the skills to do all that too. So you mix that with his frame, he's just dangerous. You see he's much bigger than Patricio here. You see the height. We take a look, at the reach advantage. Look at the reach advantage here. We're talking about an 8-inch reach advantage. I would like to see McKee really use that reach advantage. I would like to see him use the reach with his kicks as well. I want to see him be a little bit more diverse with the kicks. I think that's something that we will see from him as his career progresses. And I'm on the slight dog here. I'm on the slight dog, AJ McKee, to win this fight. And don't miss this fight. This is going to be a hell of a fight. I'm telling you guys right now. One way or another, something crazy is going to happen here. And the winner of this fight is... Well, either way, actually, I shouldn't say it like that. But these are 2 of the best featherweight fighters in the world. The winner of this fight, I should say, is possibly up there to eventually be the best featherweight fighter on planet Earth. How about that? I'll throw something out there like that. Especially with AJ McKee, if he wins this fight and keeps it going, I really hope we can get him over to the UFC too, so we can really prove that. But he has that type of potential. So you guys see, I'm very, very high on AJ McKee. You want to talk about a test in Patricio Pitbull? A true legend, a dual weight champion who's so well-rounded and dangerous. I can't wait to see how this fight takes place. We're going to really learn something about both of these guys in this fight. So the pick is AJ McKee. And that's going to wrap up the Bellator 263 breakdown. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And what else? Again, this fight's taking place Saturday. So it will be, competing with the UFC event taking place Saturday, taking place in Los Angeles. Please like this video, guys. Subscribe to the channel. I got a little clip of Adrian Yanez. Just uploaded that if you guys are interested in checking that out. A little interview with him. Obviously, Yanez is really putting things together. That was a pretty cool interview I got to do with him. Catch me on all my social media. And other than that, you guys will be hearing from me very soon. All right, guys. Signing out, The Teller.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller. The teller. The teller. The teller.